That was what was said on ProWrestling.com, .net, PW Insider, PW Torch. Everybody was talking about how The Undertaker should have won that match, and a lot of people are still saying the same thing about Sting, using the same kind of scenario with how if Sting was not injured in that match, he would have came out of it as champion. And I believe that Sting probably would have came out of that match, and it was probably meant for Sting to win the championship. But again, there's the philosophy of how Vince McMahon's never going to let WCW win, and with how WCW was almost put WWE out of business because of someone like Sting being so loyal to that brand, there's no way really in all actuality that Vince McMahon or Triple H is going to let Sting win the championship and hold it, especially with how he was one of the driving factors behind WCW almost coming really close to putting WWE out of business. They didn't let him win at WrestleMania, and they're not going to let him win in a major championship match against a wrestler like Seth Rollins, who they are desperately trying to push. And with how desperately they've been trying to create someone like Seth Rollins to carry the company as a replacement for CM Punk, they're going to do everything. They're going to put Seth Rollins in the ring against everybody they can virtually think of or have him in the ring against to put him over. And he's been put over recently in matches with Brock Lesnar. I thought that was ridiculous with how Seth Rollins survived the match with Brock Lesnar as a result of a disqualification because of The Undertaker low-blowing Brock Lesnar and costing him the championship. That was ridiculous enough, but to have him go from facing Brock Lesnar to eventually Sting at the Night of Champions pay-per-view, putting him over by winning both titles from John Cena in a title versus title match at SummerSlam, and to go from there to facing Sting at Night of Champions after previously losing to John Cena in a U.S. title match and beating Sting with an injury from Sting, of course, that's ridiculous. And I think Sting should have never been treated the way that he was, and that's why I really agree with everybody who had an opinion towards Sting and the way he was treated. And if you were someone who disagreed with how Sting was treated, I have a lot of respect for you. Now, for those of you who agree with the way the Sting situation and circumstances unfolded at Night of Champions and with how he was treated, I really don't know what to say in response to all of you, because I think that Sting is a legend. Sting, of course, worked with every major wrestling organization from the AWA to WCW to TNA, and he pushed every wrestler that you can possibly think of. Sting has been in the ring with the best, the greatest of all time, from Ric Flair all the way to Kurt Angle and AJ Styles. Win or lose, Sting has had some of the greatest wrestling matches of any wrestler's career in the wrestling business, and he's definitely a five-star performer. He's a grade A five-star performer, and he's had so many five-star matches, win or lose, against some of the greatest of all time, from Hulk Hogan to Bret Hart to Goldberg to Diamond Dallas Page to AJ Styles, Kurt Angle, or Samoa Joe. No matter what wrestling organization you're talking about, Sting goes all the way from being one of the top wrestlers of the business all the way to losing to someone like Seth Rollins and Triple H all the time. It's really ridiculous. He's lost at every major pay-per-view. He hasn't won a major pay-per-view match, and I think that really what this is resulting as is a screw job for Sting. It's kind of like the Bret Hart screw job in Montreal, only a little bit different because of how Bret Hart was screwed and how different Sting is being screwed. Sting is being screwed out of every opportunity he's been given. Obviously, it's scripted. Sting knows he's losing every opportunity he's been given, and maybe this is the way that it's meant to go to set up for something ultimately greater for Sting to achieve, possibly retiring The Undertaker. That's a rumor for WrestleMania 32, but with his injury, I really don't see Sting getting back in the ring anytime soon, even though there's a lot of speculation of when or how we're going to see Sting again. I really don't see him getting back in the ring, and it really saddens me to have to say this on this microphone, but once you have a neck injury or a back injury, those kind of injuries are very hard to rehabilitate from and come back from, and Sting himself knows how difficult that's going to be to come back from, and I really wish this wasn't the reality that we were faced with, because I know how many Sting fans there are out there. There are Sting fans by the millions. People, of course, have the Sting mask, the Sting face paint, the Sting t-shirts. Everybody is a diehard fan of Sting these days, and everybody wants to see Sting achieve something ultimately greater than what he's been given thus far in WWE ever since he first showed up on the network under a Legends contract and showed up at Survivor Series and Team Cena versus Team Authority's match, assisting Team Cena beat Team Authority, putting over Dolph Ziggler the way he did. He did nothing with Dolph Ziggler after the Survivor Series elimination match with Team Cena facing Team Authority. It was obviously just a setup for Sting versus Triple H the following year at WrestleMania in 2015, and by 2015, with all the momentum that Sting had gained heading into his match with Triple H, you pretty much knew that Sting was going to lose this match. And the thing is with Sting, he has a psychological advantage over everybody he faces. He gets the better of them up until match time, and then he loses in some ridiculous way. And he wouldn't have lost, years ago in a ridiculous way in a WWE or a TNA ring as much as what he's losing now. If this were 14 years ago and Sting would have been brought back for the Alliance versus WWE angle, I think Sting would have been being put over, especially with how WCW had a decisive advantage and a psychological advantage for so many months after they were purchased by WWE in this Alliance versus WWE angle we saw from 2001 to 2002. I don't think Sting would have been treated that way. Sting probably would have got over in WWE or TNA years ago. If this were 10 or 12 years ago, Sting probably wouldn't be being treated this way. But the thing is, Sting is who he is, and Vince McMahon has obviously looked at Sting the way he has chosen to look at Sting for years. And what was interesting about Sting is he didn't know what 2014 had in store for him when he was on tour in the UK with TNA. He had an uncensored interview that was posted on YouTube during the UK tour of TNA in 2013. He didn't know what 2014 had in store for him. He left out TNA Wrestling, left his contract behind, and he went with WWE under Legends contract. And I think if Sting would have realized this was going to happen to him, he probably would have never signed with WWE. But with the money that Sting is getting for losing, he's got to be getting a ridiculous number for losing these matches all the time. He hasn't won a major pay-per-view match, and he's got to be really satisfied with the numbers he's got at the end of a contract he's signed with WWE. The zeros have got to be ridiculous for Sting on this contract. And he's getting numbers for losing all the time, and WWE are getting ridiculous reviews for Sting losing all the time, because look at the response that fans have been giving Sting, and that's why I have a profound amount of respect for everybody responding to Sting losing all the time, because they're letting their voices be heard. And as long as they continue to let their voices be heard, maybe, perhaps, there'll be something done with Sting losing. Obviously, it's not going to be now with this neck injury of Sting, obviously sidelining him for 6 months to a year, possibly, which is really ridiculous. I don't know that if we're going to see Sting before then. He's not a John Cena, he's not a Randy Orton, and he obviously, at 58 years of age, can't rehabilitate himself as fast as someone like John Cena and Randy Orton. And it's not like Sting is needed in WWE right now. The only thing that could obviously happen because of all this, the ratings could drop because there are diehard fans of Sting out there, and WWE would have no other choice but to put him back in the ring sooner than what they possibly could be doing with him. But the thing is, he's not a John Cena or a Randy Orton, and he's not needed in the ring as much as what a Cena or an Orton is. If this was John Cena now, and John Cena was your biggest draw, and he was the one putting the asses in the seats, you would see John Cena back within 3 to 4 months with someone like Randy Orton, obviously filling the vacancy while John Cena was on an injury, and vice versa. With Randy Orton on an injury, it's obviously John Cena being the torch carrier of WWE. It's not like Sting is in a position right now as the torch carrier of WWE, and it's not like he's desperately needed to get the ratings up. The only way they would need to put him back in the ring is if WWE continue to get these ridiculous reviews from fans on how Sting was treated at the Night of Champions pay-per-view. Going back to that match, the thing that made Sting look absolutely ridiculous, and why I think it's going to be a long time before we see him again, was how the doctor had to come out and stop the match halfway through. And if not for Sting's professionality wanting to finish the match the way that he's always finished every match, injured or not, this match probably wouldn't have looked as good as what it did. But having the doctor come out and check on him halfway through the match, and then stopping the match with Seth Rollins looking oblivious to what happened, and then going on to pin Sting with the curb stomp, it was just absolutely stupid. It made Sting look pathetic, and that's why I don't think we're going to see Sting anytime soon, because Sting needs to find a way to rebound off all this and make up for lost time. How he's going to do it, I really don't know, but at this point it looks like Sting is done. Now, he's been meeting with WWE headquarters. You've probably seen that popping up on my Facebook page time and time again within every half hour, and tweeted out on my Twitter at Jonathan Clark 1. It's just speculation right now when, where, and how we're going to see Sting reemerge in WWE, but I'd love to know what your opinion is on how we're going to see Sting come back and who he's going to feud with when he returns. Will it be Triple H? Will he immediately go for Seth Rollins? This is a rumor that's been posted on professional wrestling news websites. Apparently Sting has put it out there. The challenge has been issued to Seth Rollins when Sting eventually returns, if in fact Seth Rollins is champion. And even if he isn't champion, I think that would be perfectly set up for Sting to actually win a major pay-per-view match if Seth Rollins wasn't champion, and he went after Seth Rollins for putting him out and made him tap out to the Scorpion Deathlock in an eventual pay-per-view match. It would set up perfectly if Seth Rollins wasn't champion. If you didn't want to give Sting the belt, you should have been putting him in matches that he didn't have to actually win a major championship, or he could have been put over in. But unfortunately, WWE get great pleasure at mistreating former WCW wrestlers like they did with Goldberg, and now they're doing the same thing with Sting. And it's just absolutely ridiculous. Now, you may say to yourself that I'm somewhat of a critic towards how Sting's been treated because I'm a diehard Sting fan, and I've never covered or denied that fact up of how I've been a really big Sting fan. I'm going to continue to be a big Sting fan until something is done and someone like Sting benefits from signing a contract with WWE, because if Sting continues to be treated this way, it's just going to be looked at as a Sting screw job, and it would have been completely pointless for Sting to have ever signed a contract with WWE with how he's always treated this way. It's ridiculous. I'm a huge Sting fan, like millions of you are out there with your Sting face paint and your Sting t-shirts, and I don't think Sting should be treated this way, and WWE as a company should not be getting away with how they've been treating WCW alumni. Goldberg was one issue, and Sting is an entirely different issue. 14 years after WCW was purchased, here comes Sting as the sole survivor, allegedly, of WCW, and he has this grudge against Triple H, which he's held against Triple H and the McMahon family for years. Of course, we all remember that YouTube video from 2005. I've talked about that year after year of how Sting shot on Vince McMahon and WWE on YouTube back in 2005, and we know how much animosity Sting had built up inside his soul for the McMahon family and Triple H. They used that as a storyline to put Sting in the WWE ring for the first time ever at WrestleMania 31 in 2015. It blew up. Everybody was so excited to see Sting wrestling for the first time in years in a WWE ring, the first time ever. The possibility of The Undertaker versus Sting and Kane versus Sting and Sting versus John Cena was thrown around the internet. These are rumored matches. They are not confirmed matches just yet. The possibilities are still out there of opponents of Sting in the future, but there are so many superstars. Here's the thing with Sting and the down point of this injury. The down point of this injury, and how you could choose to look at it, is there are so many superstars on the new talent initiative like John Cena and Randy Orton who Sting could create with, and this injury is nothing really but a setback for Sting, because we could be seeing these matches for events like WrestleManias and SummerSlams of the future, and it's just ridiculous. With the chance of Undertaker during Sting's post-WrestleMania interview with Renee Young in the fall of WrestleMania 31, Sting said he didn't know what WWE had in store for him, but whatever it was, he was going to reach out and grab it. And let's hope it's matches with the likes of The Undertaker and John Cena, because these are dream matches that wrestling fans, and I think I speak for everybody when I say that these are dream matches that wrestling fans want to see and have wanted to see for a very long time. It's just unfortunate that this neck injury is a real setback for Sting, and nobody knows when we're going to see him again, when, where, and how Sting is going to resurface and reemerge within WWE. But I don't think we've seen the last of Sting. Just like I said years ago, that I really held the belief that one day we would see Sting in a WWE ring. I don't think we've seen the last of the vigilante Sting, and the fans of Sting are getting better and better all the time. Bigger and bigger of a fan base Sting is building with the millions of fans he has on Facebook, the millions of followers he has on Twitter, and with the fan base of Sting, the fan wagon, figuratively speaking, getting bigger all the time for Sting. I don't think Sting is going anywhere anytime soon, and we haven't seen the last of Sting, especially with dream matches like Sting versus Brock Lesnar, Sting versus John Cena, Sting versus Randy Orton, Sting versus Kane, and Sting versus The Undertaker, the big one. Big dream matches that are still out there. Sting is not far away from WWE, and we have not seen the last of the vigilante Sting losing